Welcome everybody to TUFF. I'm Mark Bonto, your co-host of TUFF, and this is Deanna Avery.
Hello.
Welcome back again to TUFF. This is TUFF, Together United for Flint, with another opinionated, rough, and fun episode. Today we have a very special show. We have the Green Party gubernatorial candidate, Jennifer Kurland, and she is on the phone. Jennifer, are you there?
I am. Hello, everyone.
Hello. How are you?
I'm lovely. So good to talk to you all. Thanks so much for having me on.
And thanks for doing this. We
really appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. This is going to be great. We anticipate hearing from you and heard a lot about you, and we're nervous right now because we want to make sure that we get the word out and we can talk to you and all that other stuff, right?
Right, absolutely. Find out what's going on in Michigan.
Yeah. So what is going on in Michigan, Jennifer?
I think the larger question is what isn't going on in Michigan.
Right.
Great question.
Absolutely.
Great point. Tell us a few things. What isn't going on, Jennifer? What's up?
It seems like every day I'm opening the news and there's some new crisis that is popping up in a new community. You've got the PFA crisis, which is expanding throughout the state. You have the crisis of lead in children's bloodstreams and lead in things like public schools, like in Detroit and Highland Park, and so many other issues around the state. It seems like every day I'm popping up the news, and the news in Michigan is not good news.
No, it's not.
We were just talking about this on the last show, the PFAs, for example.
Yes.
You were saying
that they cause cancer, and there's no real cure for that.
So what can we do, Jennifer? As you know, part of your platform, what can be done about this? What can we do?
So the key issue about PFAs is really kind of tied to the larger issue of pollution in the state of Michigan.
Absolutely.
I worked for Clean Water Action back in 2001 when I was 19, and we worked, one of the campaigns, I worked there for 3 years, that I worked on was on charging fees for pollution permits, because prior to that, the state of Michigan was just giving out permits to corporations to pollute our air and our water for free. They could just apply for the permit, and if they met the parameters of the permit, then they got the permit, and that was pretty much the end. Now, we were able to start charging fees for those permits that were supposed to cover the cost of monitoring, and of course was supposed to be expanded in the near future, which still to this day has never been expanded. So one of the things that we need to do with this PFA issue and with this overall larger issue of pollution in the state of Michigan is cost them out, because businesses are not paying the true cost of their doing business. It's all landing on the backs of us as taxpayers when it comes to cleanup, when it comes to health issues that come from this pollution. And so one of the ways that we can deal with this issue of PFAs is to make sure it doesn't happen again in the future, that we change how we look at permits for pollution in the state of Michigan, and we start charging the true cost of doing business to these corporations, including healthcare, including cleanup, and including requiring them to carry insurance that would cover that as well, because those are the things that are going to price them out, and that's going to be how we can help switch over to a full 100% green renewable energy economy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, great point. Put it on them to start paying what they should be paying to begin with.
Absolutely.
Wow. The headphones are slipping off. So as governor, hopefully, this would be it would be great. What other environmental issues are out there that we need to know about?
So of course, the issue of Line 5 is a huge issue that really affects the entire state of Michigan, even though it seems to be more concentrated in terms of press in northern Michigan and the UP, because those are the people that are going to be directly affected by a spill. We have the Nexus pipeline coming up from the south, coming up from Ohio. That actually turns into a different named pipeline called the Wolverine Pipeline when it hits Wayne County, where I am, and then goes into Canada. So there's this larger issue of all of these pipelines, especially natural gas pipelines, that are coming extremely close to people's residences, homes, and schools. And then we have kind of the larger issue of fracking, which I know affects those of you in Flint from the KWA pipeline. That I believe it was built to give a source of raw water to the rural section in Michigan along the I-69 corridor. We do have outstanding permits for fracking starting from 2010 and earlier that are still outstanding to allow oil and natural gas exploration, which have not been used yet, especially in that area because there was not a source of raw water. And so that there is that source of raw water, we've also seen this year, there's 8 different natural gas plants around the entire state of Michigan that have actually either asked for a new build or an expansion of their permit to expel more natural gas. But we know that these pipelines from the Nexus, that natural gas for those 8 different plants is not coming just from those pipelines. So that means that they're going to start a new source of natural gas in the state of Michigan, which would be from fracking.
Interesting.
Very.
That was interesting because I never even considered that be a possibility of the fracking. I never heard of that. I mean, it's like I didn't know that they were planning to do that, and that's kind of eye-opening right there. I was also curious too about the Green Party. Is the Green Party in the United States aligned with the Green Parties of other countries, European countries, Jennifer? Are they? Is there a connection? Is there like a working relationship between these other parties, or what?
I would say that we're loosely affiliated, and there are some working relationships depending on, the different Green parties. So, I think that it's really more individual, right? So, our former presidential candidate, Jill Stein, she's actually gone to South Korea as a guest of the Green affiliate in Korea and spoken about peace with them. There certainly are ties here in the United States to many of the Canadian Greens, simply just, by proxy. We have had, in the South, I know that there are some Greens that are connected to Greens in Mexico and in other South American countries. And then you have Greens, in Europe, just really kind of depending on who knows who and how we're connected. Because we're a decentralized party, those connections are certainly important when we talk about international levels. But because we're a decentralized party, the biggest power in the Green Party is actually from our locals.
Because I'm interested in the party organization because, I mean, so many times it's like in unionization efforts and stuff, they seem to not have the chance to unify the people of all these other countries. So there's a refuge when one group's locked down and they have laws in place. The offending party just simply moves onto another beyond another border. So the Green Party is kind of present in the idea that they see a common goals, and they have. What are the common goals too? Would you state of the Green parties? I mean, is there any kind of broad sweeping ones or broad umbrella ones that they maybe all adhere to or have in mind?
Absolutely. So we actually have 10 key values, and instead of listing all 10 of them, I'll tell you our 4 pillars. And we call those pillars are the ones that really hold up the party. So that would be grassroots democracy, social justice, ecological wisdom, and nonviolence. And those are the pillars of our party. And all the 10 key values, which includes decentralization and community-based economics, those are all Green values around the globe.
Because I have an interest in politics. I have since I was a kid, and I just think a lot of times it's like I don't want to bore other people, but I always wanted. I never get a chance to talk to somebody from the Green Party, in the United States. I seen they're covered in the news and international news, like in England and Denmark and all the parts of Europe have a Green Party. But I always wondered who they'd be affiliated. Now, who would you say you would find more sympathetic I guess to use the term fellow travelers, politically fellow travelers, who would you say you'd align yourself more connected to, or you see a common threads or common ground that you can, or overlap? Which party would you say you'd more identify with?
You mean a political party?
Yeah, political party or parties, yes.
I would say probably we're more closely aligned with like the Working Families Party. They have very similar values to the Green Party. A lot of people like to think that the Democrat Party is the party that is the closest to the Green Party. But that's really not the case when you look at what the Democrat Party stands for, what the Republican Party stands for, like the two major parties in the United States. They don't really have very similar values of the Green Party. Now, a lot of members of those parties wish that their party was more like the Green Party in terms of what we stand for. On the conservative side, that would be things like decentralization and true conservation. Those are really conservative values that are within our 10 key values as the Green Party that we really stand for and stand up for. And on the Democrat side, a lot of people like to think that the Democrats are the ones that stand for social justice and the environment, when in practice, that's not really the case. And that is truly in our values as a party and what we stand for.
I was just curious about that because, I just see that, every party is going to want to have somebody to align themselves with because it's to look like the appearance of strength in numbers. But I'm glad you kind of clarified that. Thanks.
Yeah,
I didn't want to commandeer the conversation here, but I'm very curious about the Green Party because, it's when somebody's a person who's active in those roles there, I'd like to, ask them questions about it because you can read statements online, obviously, but to get them to state it and see, how they're connected to it, that's more eye-opening, that's more revealing, I think.
Yeah, it's a good point too, John, because I also wanted to, and I think there was a big thing of bringing you on and getting these different variable opinions from you, just to find out what Green Party stands for, and I think more people, a lot of people don't know this. Do you find that, Jennifer, that they're not familiar with what the Green Party stands for?
Absolutely. That's certainly a big part of, my campaign is educating people about, who we are, who the Green Party is, and what we stand for. Right. We certainly, I think in the state of Michigan for a long time, the old school Greens have really kind of become more lackadaisical and been treating the party more like...
It sounds like a side dish, doesn't it? The old school Greens, it sounds like something you'd have with your chicken or your potatoes. But
right.
But no,
people who have been, been in this for a long time and have just been ignored and beat down for so long by the system. It's easy to become more complacent about, we're just going to get together, we're going to put our names on the ballot, we're going to keep this ballot access.
Right. Before Jill Stein, wasn't it Ralph Nader? Who was the big Green Party?
Ralph Nader Ralph Nader was the big one.
Right.
And he was actually my very first presidential vote.
Really?
Awesome.
Wow. Okay. I think that.
Then it was really, Jill Stein who kind of reawakened the party.
Sure.
Brought people back in, and I'm so happy. She was actually just in town the past few days, and she did a road trip, and she traveled for over a week to New York and Maine and Washington D.C. and Ohio and here in Michigan.
Right.
And she is doing the groundwork that needs to be done to help grow the party. Right. And there's certainly, within every organization, you're going to have people that are fighting growth and change.
Sure.
But I think that we're really in a fantastic time, especially as a decentralized party, that we are seeing so much growth on the local level. And last year, we grew nationally by 400%. In Ohio alone, they grew 75% this year because they have primary access. So in the primaries, they had a 75% increase in people who green in the primary.
Wow.
really seeing this upswell of people who are looking for another option,
Right.
and are actively seeking another option. And so I'm really doing my part here in Michigan to grow the party and to show people that they are welcome, that we want them to join, and let's make this happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's another good reason why we wanted to bring you on is, just to get the word out. And of course, Deanna, she's very familiar with your work. And
Yes. So what are your plans for Michigan, Jennifer?
So of course, I mean, as you guys are aware, my number one issue is Flint, fixing Flint. And Flint is the canary in the coal mine for all of these other issues in our state. When we talk about the issue of crumbling infrastructure, it's not just our roads, it is our water and our sewer infrastructure that is also crumbling around the state. 43% of the counties in our state of Michigan have children with lead poisoning. And that's not just from derelict landlords who have lead paint spill that they haven't properly taken care of. That is from our crumbling water and sewer infrastructure, especially when we see by where I am in Detroit Public Schools. I'm so proud of the kids who just did a walkout on count day because they cannot drink the water in their schools.
That's sad. That's really sad.
very,
And Highland Park has the same issues, and this is an issue that we're seeing around the entire state. But it's really important to note when we think about this issue of children with lead poisoning, the only kids who are tested on a regular basis for lead in their bloodstream are kids who are on public assistance.
That's correct.
wow.
So this means, and it's only in your bloodstream for 30 days. So this means that this could really be a larger epidemic.
It goes right to your bones after that.
Right. But if we tested every kid in the state of Michigan for lead, I think we would see a really sharp increase because it's not just children who are on public assistance who are exposed to lead.
Correct. Yeah.
So,
I agree.
how does the Green Party play a part in that?
The Green Party, when you think about, these movements around our state, oftentimes you see Green Party members who are really the ones on the ground doing a lot of the work. We're just not always wearing green.
Right.
Great point.
So people who are in the anti-fracking,
That's right.
yeah. So people who are in the anti-fracking movement are, you see a lot of Greens that are in the anti-fracking movement. When you see people who are active in pro-public education, there's a lot of Greens that are active in these organizations. When you see people who are against the water shutoffs, there's a lot of Greens that are on the ground doing the work. And so even in the pro-marijuana movement, right? Ending prohibition of cannabis or marijuana, however you want to call it.
Right.
That was actually, many times, just like in that, the Green Party was really the ones on the ground starting that movement.
Right.
And so, we've really been on the forefront as a party and party members and our platform as being the ones who are starting to make the change that really needs to happen in our state.
Well, and that's interesting too, because I don't know if a lot of people know that about the Green Party. So that is really interesting. How does it differ from libertarians? You're obviously not for the traditional governmental parties, and you're more environmentally conscious. But like libertarians, you're not really for how the government is doing things for the most part. Is that an accurate statement or no? Or is that question all over the place?
So the Green Party is an eco-socialist party.
Mm-hmm.
We are a left libertarian party,
Okay.
but we're not, I think kind of the major difference is, I would say what I've had libertarians say to me is that they believe taxation is best. And I think that right there is kind of the key difference, right? Is that the way that the libertarians want to govern is they want to govern with less government, but by less government, they mean less regulations and less laws. And they may be pro-social justice, but they don't want laws on social justice. They want the government out of as many things as possible with limited amount of taxes. And the Greens, we're not against taxes. We just want our taxes to go to the right things. That I think you'll find a lot of Greens will say, tax me more if it's going to give me better public schools,
Okay.
better roads, and universal health care.
Right.
And so is the major difference between the Libertarians and the Green Party.
That's a fair comparison. I think that's a good fair comparison, I would say. Now you're not going to test us on the 4 pillars, are you? I remember the last 2, but I don't remember. I don't remember the last. I don't remember.
You can find them online. You can just search for the Green Party 10 key values, and you will find all of our 10 key values and the explanations of all those values as well.
And I think Jill Stein does a really good job. And Jennifer, and I apologize, I didn't do. I didn't know a whole lot about you or prior, and of course Deanna knew a lot more. But Jill does a great job getting out the word and what
Yeah, she does.
stands for as well. I mean, that's how I've learned a lot about the Green Party.
Thank you. I'm climbing Mount Everest with my handmade grappling hook.
Right.
The media certainly does not want you to know that I exist. So I have to be as grassroots as grassroots can be.
Right.
There you go.
Well, so this is exciting. So, I mean, are you excited to do this? Do you think you've got a shot? I mean, I this is tough. We have to ask the direct questions. What do you think? I mean, you're fighting for what you believe in, and we hope you're the best. What do you think? Do you think there's a real chance here?
It's certainly a long shot, but there are so many people in the state of Michigan that are fed up.
Right.
They're fed up of the two-party system. They're fed up of, even the candidates that are put out by the two-party system this year. And they are looking for an alternative. So, when you look at polls, polls are only calling people who have landlines. And that certainly is no longer the majority of people in Michigan. And so,
right.
There's so many people that are not being polled that, I've been on the ground doing the work that needs to be done. I'm going to as many, large events as I possibly can. I have a good social media presence on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. My lieutenant governor and I, Shar Davenport, we went to Bay City Fireworks and we walked the Bay City Fireworks, people just, sitting and waiting for the fireworks. And we personally spoke to 1,000 people.
Wow. That's great.
Just meeting them and handing them our literature. And some of them we had longer conversations with. And those people that we touched, those people are going to be talking to other people that they met us and that we were on the ground. And so, it's really hard to judge that effect and what that's going to do, because the Green Party of Michigan hasn't had a gubernatorial candidate before. And this isn't a knock on our prior, governor candidates, but we haven't had anyone before that has really been on the ground doing the grassroots work to actively run for this office before.
Right.
So it's hard to judge exactly, what could happen. I'm certainly not wanting to lose, and I'm certainly not, not campaigning.
Right.
But I certainly don't have anywhere near the money that the other candidates have, and that certainly does put me at a disadvantage. And so I'm seeking every
choice, though. I'm telling you.
Thank you. I'm doing the things that I think need to be done. And even just being able to go on, your show, and, local independent media and getting interviews with local independent media is really important, because the Detroit News doesn't want you to know I exist. But I did do an interview with the Oakland County Times.
There you go.
So I'm doing the things that need to be done, and I'm doing as much as I can with the little resources that I have, because I'm not personally wealthy.
Well, and you stand up for a lot. You stand up for a lot of great issues. We hope to see you back here. We know you've got the quite a bit of area to cover here in the state, but we certainly would love to see you back here in Flint. That's for sure.
Yeah, let us know when you come back. We'll have to have lunch or something.
Absolutely. Well, I'm actually coming back up tomorrow. Actually,
wow.
I will be up there tomorrow, going to the county commission meeting with our county commission candidate in Flint, Gina Lester.
Okay.
And so with her, and then we'll be doing a little work on her campaign, and then I have a school board meeting tomorrow night, because I'll be back here in Redford.
Wow, you're a busy woman.
Yeah, a lot of traveling.
Yeah, I'll be on Dr. Lee Bell's show. Again, he just had me on the Jazz Jacuzzi yesterday, and I'll be on again on the 20th. So I'm coming back on his show, so I'll be back up in Flint again. And Gene and I are talking about doing, setting up some town halls towards the end of the month. Because I think one of the key issues in the state of Michigan when we talk about changing our political landscape and how we can really transform Michigan politics is the Green Party. In order to form a local, we only need 3 people to form a local. So we're really working to get some people who are willing to do the work in Flint to join the party and help us organize in Flint, because I think it's really important in Flint. And we have a local in Detroit, and we're really working hard to continue to build up not just our local in Detroit, but in Wayne County itself. But if we can have, some major forces in Wayne County and in Flint and Genesee County, there goes the state. Right. That is where the political power really lies in the state. And I think it's really key that we can really do this. And we can really transform Michigan politics just by showing people that there is a party. People talk about, there's progressive Dems, quote unquote, that don't take public money or don't take, only take, people money and don't take the corporate money.
Right.
But the party itself takes corporate money. And so it does not matter how your candidate does not take the money, because the party itself does. And once that candidate is in the general election, they are now beholden to the party and to the party's donors. And so the Green Party itself does not take any of that corporate money, no PAC money, no super PAC money, and our candidates don't either. So there is nobody that our candidates are beholden to aside from the people. And so I would love to have you and your listeners, join us. I will definitely keep you posted as we set those dates, and we can get that local formed in the city of Flint, and we can do that on the ground work in Flint. I think we really have the opportunity to transform the state of Michigan.
That's great. That's awesome. Well,
sounds good to me.
Yeah. Well, they can tune in. Like I said, you're being broadcast. This is on allpointstv.com, also on Comcast cable. All through, throughout the mid-Michigan area. So, hopefully this show will help bring to light a lot of the issues and a lot of the things that you brought up, and get you a little bit more exposed, because it sounds like something at least people should look into.
Yes, they should.
So
they need a change, big one.
We need
a big one.
Yes, I agree with you so much, Deanna.
Well, Jennifer, we appreciate it. We got like 30 seconds left, and I just wanted to thank you for coming on today. This has been...
Yes, thank you. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope to have you back. And even the call-in thing works for, you can't see right now, but... When they see the show, you'll be able to see me fiddling with my headsets, because they feel kind of funny on my head. I don't usually wear these on TV, but it was well worth it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm happy to come on again anytime.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. We really appreciate you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you all so much. You have a
yes.
Okay.
Good luck. Thanks. Well, folks, let me take these off. That's all the time we have for today on TUFF. Together, United for Flint. I'm Mark Bonto.
And Deanna Avery.
Got to tell them, not me. I know who you are.
I was just checking.
And we will see you next time on TUFF. And remember, get tough. Good night.
Ciao.